What's going on, everyone? This is Jordan with Conquer Trading and Investing, and we are ready to get started with our live stream. Welcome if you're watching us on the replay. I'm glad you're here with us. And this is going to be a pretty good week of trading. We're getting close to the holidays here. We're getting close to Christmas. And next week is going to be pretty light. As we get towards the end of the week, we'll talk a lot about that. Right now, let's focus what's going on. We have actually this morning some more data. We have flash manufacturing PMI coming up in about 45 minutes. And then also later this evening, we have out of Australia, the monetary policy meeting minutes. My hunch is this is going to be supportive of the Australian dollar. Let's find out what the charts have to say about that. What else is going on? It looks like we have risk on this morning. And let's dig deeper. Let's start with the DXY. I saw the pre-markets though are up about up almost 0.5%, about 0.4%. We'll have to watch the opening in about a half hour and see how the markets react, whether or not they hold on to those gains. Generally speaking, this week is pretty positive for equities going into the Christmas holiday. That should be things are aligned to continue to have this risk off. Let's see what happens. I'm sorry, risk on, all the way on. I gotta find out where the chat is. Bernsey, King, Alberto, Mima, hey, good to see you all. Let's kick it off with the Euro US dollar, and then we'll go to the DXY. I always like looking at the Euro first. And this trend line we have here as a guide, let me look on the 8-hour, is currently holding. This support here that we bounced off of earlier since this week opened up, and this trend line are our guides going into here. We got some resistance overhead. I assume that this is the flash manufacturing PMI coming up this morning is going to be the next thing that this market keys off of, the US dollar. By the way, I read on Saturday this really interesting piece. I am in the camp of that the US dollar is the cleanest shirt in a dirty hamper, right? That although the US dollar has severe problems, that, you look around and the US dollar is definitely the best bet. And I know some of you share that sentiment as well. That's a narrative that we've all heard. Narratives are powerful. Storytelling is really powerful. I highly recommend reading this article. This lady Lynn, she's really like an up and coming superstar. I've been following her for a few months now, and she has a lot to offer. I highly recommend to go ahead and take a look at this article. It's really important, and it goes into she is in 2020. She's actually forecasting and beyond a weaker dollar. And if you read this, at least to understand the other side of the view that you have is really important. And without getting into it now, what she says makes a lot of sense. All right. Yeah. So now we're looking at phase 2, right? So the markets have a lot to look forward to with phase 2 optimism. They're going to keep that going, I think, all year. I think, in my own personal opinion, until Trump is reelected, and then he's going to come down hard, and we're going to see huge disruption. Leonard it's a solid read. It's really good, and it has me rethinking what's going on. It makes a lot of sense. And basically, what it says is everyone has used all of their ammo, right? The ECB, the Bank of Japan, and the United States has all of their ammo left. So, really interesting. So Euro US dollar here, obviously, until we get these numbers out of the way in about 40 minutes, we're not going to know where the next direction is. Be careful over here. This is where you have your resistance. There's a lot of work to do to get over that. And then, you get a little bit safer once this trend line breaks here to the downside, that you could begin looking to see if you want to sell. The one caveat about that is the lower you are to this support line, the support is holding. You see it? So this is really the support to key off of, if whether or not that's going to hold or break. The closer you get to this resistance without breaking it, and the further up you get, the safer your short is. So right now I'm neutral on the euro US dollar, and I'm watching it to see what develops next. The DXY, we looked at in the weekly Forex forecast, about it was trading up to this resistance, and it's holding so far. It's pretty much the reverse of what we're looking at the euro US dollar. So again, there's really no clear direction right now. And there are other things, though, that are actually trading with a little bit more of a tell. So let's keep looking and focus in on where the best opportunity lies. Gold is trading within this channel still. I'm calling it a bear flag, but either way, it's trading within this channel, and we're up at this resistance right here. All right. And we're getting towards the upper range. So now is where you want to begin looking for shorts on gold. Extend that up a little bit. You could see this resistance going back to over here. Price is coming into it right now. This has broken through that resistance a couple of times, or at least spiked through. And you have this upper trend line resistance over here, and followed by this resistance over here. So gold is now towards, or getting towards, the upper half of that range. But again, there's no clear direction yet, and you have time. Once you get above this resistance, you have a little bit more clarity. You have a lot of work to do right now to the downside. And adversely, a break below, I think if we ever see a break below, it's going to open up some downside. Nice. So we have the weakest yen, and that's because we have risk on across the board. And let's take a look at, let me start with the US dollar, Japanese yen. And that looks pretty neutral right now. All right. Looking at the daily perspective, you have 3 up bars in a row. This will be the third. And although we're holding above this support over here, let's change that up. We're holding above this support and back within this rising wedge. I think it's pretty neutral here, right? I don't really see much of an edge either which way. You have this resistance up here. I think if we do clear this resistance, then we're going to make it up to this top of this range. Let's look back to the left. Yeah, you have some room up there, but I don't see an entry there. If we get a solid PMI number at 9:45 Eastern time, which should then help put a bid under the US dollar, then this might be a place to look, because we do have, as Leonard just mentioned, a weak yen today. So and you can see, even with the weak yen, the US dollar is stronger than it. So if you see something that would turn around the bid on the US dollar, which would be those manufacturing numbers, if they come in hot and strong, at that point, we could look over here at the US dollar. Japanese yen. US dollar, Japanese yen. What's going on, Honduras? I saw the CAD is definitely making some nice gains this morning against the US dollar. Probably one of the stronger pairs today. Australian dollar is pretty doing all right today. We'll look at the Australian dollar pairs next. Although we've gotten away, again, we looked at this, or I think we looked at this in the weekly Forex forecast. If not, we looked at this on Friday. And again, we were watching this for a while, looking to sell into here. I came into here and I never sold. Against this trend line over here, against this upper resistance over here, that was the place to look to selling on this trend line break. Price came down. You can see now it kind of tested this trend line over here. There should be another line drawn in over there, because I could connect them. I'm just going to move this here to show you. You could see that trend line connecting those tops over there, right? Should have 2 in there. This one goes back further. There you go. And it came off there and has since now gotten away from me. So I'm not looking to chase after this. I'm looking at this more as a review to see how I could have traded this better, because there's been fantastic opportunity here. If you get definitely a weak PMI number, this is a place to focus while you have a strong Canadian dollar today, acting well versus the US dollar. So if we're going to see a little bit more follow through, and that would be with a super weak, not if the number's mixed, if the number comes in close to expectations, don't really pay it much mind, right? If it comes in anywhere like just off by a point or so, that's not such a big deal. Don't worry about it. But if you have a big miss, then look to the Canadian dollar, US dollar, Canadian dollar. And if you have a big numbers come in way ahead of expectations, look to the US dollar, Japanese yen. All right, Blair, let me catch up with you. I'm long here, Australian dollar, Japanese yen. As far as targets, let me see what you wrote. 75,668. As far as broker, look in the description. I use FX Choice. If you look in the description of the video, there's a link there. Oh yeah, you could. All right, so Blair, I think you're keying off of this over here, and then you have also over here. This is where the trend resumed downwards. Yeah, I think we get to even a little bit higher than that. Let me see. I think so anyway, we right now the situation is we have risk on, right? We have risk on that seems like it's going to be hold. That's why we're seeing the weak yen. I have a feeling that for a little while that this could persist, maybe even through this week. And just be aware that tonight we also have the monetary policy meeting minutes. The Australian bank is showing us that they've seen a hopeful turn and that they're going to be on hold. So the minutes should be reflecting that. That should be supportive of the Australian dollar. This looks like a good trade. Let me look on the daily. I'm not in a rush to get out of it so quick. I'll be looking to take a little piece off over here and then hold and see what happens around this resistance up here. See how price reacts up here if we get up there. It could be a good trade, so I'm not looking to get out of it so quickly. Just lock in some profits and see where she goes. But yeah, I also really like looking at the weakest and the strongest. Here you look, is the pound the strongest this week? This going into this session? We know the yen is the weakest. I don't know, probably is the Australian dollar the strongest? So I saw this week that on Friday, PM Johnson plans on submitting withdrawal papers to the EU. So expect, as we get closer to the end of the week, expect some political focus to come into effect on the pound. I was looking, you're coming down to a little bit of support over here on the Canadian dollar, pound Canadian dollar. Just look out right over there. You can see this, where this broke out over up here. How is the pound doing versus other pairs? Pound looks good versus the euro. Pound is mixed versus the dollar, and you have a weak dollar. So that says to me that the pound is also pretty weak this morning. And the Japanese yen is also very weak. And the pound is also is unchanged versus both the dollar and the yen. So pound's pretty weak this morning. This looks interesting. That's just coming up again. So I was looking at pound pairs earlier this morning before we got on together, and I don't really see any type of edge in this moment on the pound. I'm focused elsewhere. Um, I'm focused where there is a little more clarity. These wicks could come up and be tested again, but the fact that buyers aren't holding up here, not really such a good sign. You see it over here as well. I just feel like standing aside on the pound Japanese yen pairs. I like the Australian dollar, Japanese yen. It looks good here. Um, Australian dollars is holding this level over here versus the US dollar. This is off of that yearly trend line breakout. We have the strongest support down below. This looks good and healthy too. I think this is going to be able to extend up for a retest. This though will be more. I think if you do get strong PMI numbers this morning, I don't think that's going to help the weakness you see in the yen, because that's going to be further supportive of risk on, and you could see the dollar firm up though. So why we could still see why this looks healthy. This structurally looks healthy from the breakout you over here. I feel like the better opportunities on the Australian dollar, Japanese yen at the moment. Maria, good morning. We have, yeah. So this looks like it's getting ready. And again, this is also, I believe, reflective of the risk on. And we're getting close to what appears to be a pretty big breakout over here. I think we could go up and test closer to 63. As far as anyone who is focused here on crude, I think what you need to do is just keep moving this trend line up and use that as a guide. And if we do crash below it, move below it, then you have to rethink your position. But until then, this looks pretty bullish, and we might be getting a breakout now to the upside. This could be a big week for crude. It looks like the S&P futures, as we get about closer to about 10 minutes to open, are extending their pre-market gains. About up 0.5% right now. Let's see if this turns out to be a trend day, then set the tone, or watch what happens on the open. Euro Japanese yen continues to have really gotten away. This, I was standing aside here. Right now, you're coming towards this sell zone up here. I think we're gonna really. I'm not in this trade. I have no chance of getting into this trade. It looks like she has the possible opportunity here with the weak yen to climb all the way up and get up into that sell zone, testing this resistance over here, testing all the way towards the upper resistance of this channel. Right now, it's just in the direct center of this channel, but it looks pretty bullish. And I was hesitant down here to take the trade because I was looking at a bunch of resistance. I was looking at taking a buy into resistance and then another resistance overhead. I didn't get a chance. Once she broke out above this resistance over here, she's just gotten away. I never had an opportunity. Here's where it broke out of that resistance and kind of just got away. Yeah, the Canadian dollar tends to be supportive also when there is a risk on type environment, which we are seeing both. We're seeing the risk on environment. We're seeing crude has a bid, and we're also seeing the Canadian dollar has a bid. So again, if you get weak numbers today, and then you're going to see that most likely translate into further US dollar weakness, I think the US dollar, Canadian dollar offers the best opportunity. Here's what's going on here with the euro pound. It's been in such a strong, consistent downtrend. Yet for me, it's so tough to trade. We started following it, I guess, when it was right around here, when it was just trading sideways after this next leg down. There's nothing here that I could see. Except maybe the closer we get to the test of this breakdown, this resistance up here, that's an opportunity to look for a possible resumption of the trend downwards if we're rejected. This looks like more, the way that it's been moving and trending looks more like just if you're a position type trader. This is so tough to trade, even for a swing trader though. Australian dollar, Canadian dollar is pretty mixed, right? That's interesting. So the Australian dollar is the strongest today, just a little bit more stronger than the Canadian dollar, but these two are mixed. These two are caught within this developing triangle. Oh, sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, it's a good point, Blair. I'm not sure what that was. I believe it was retail sales. Is that correct? Is that even? It's not even in here. And also technically though, you know, especially the Australian dollar, Japanese yen. Again, you have this trend line break over here, which is a also on the Japanese yen, a year-long break. And then this support, technically this looks so good. You get above this resistance up here, this looks phenomenal, which is why, again, Blair, I'm only looking here to lock in a little bit of profit. And then I'm looking to let this trade see what happens with it, because if you do get above this resistance, that's about 80 pips higher off of this huge break. This looks really good. You do have the global environment right now, which is although no one loves the phase one deal, we do have risk on right now. Also on the Australian dollar, US dollar, technically that also, before I got those China numbers, looks really good, looks really sound. There is no, you're right, there is no, on the Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, there's simply no good risk to reward. Who noted that? Leonard, awesome. That's super important. You only want to take trades where you have the risk to reward with you going into it. And here, as this pattern continues to play out, this looks like, a triangle here with the lower highs coming into this top resistance over here. Now we're just narrowing the range until we get a break. A break of this should really open up some nice volatility, potentially. So keep watch on this, but right now is the time to kind of give it a little bit of room until the risk to reward develops a little nicer. Industrial production. This is kind of flat also, your Australian dollar. I think the opportunity right now is on the Australian dollar, Japanese yen, Australian dollar, US dollar. What is the New Zealand dollar, Japanese yen doing? This is continuing its run. Swiss franc is holding a little stronger. Wow. I'm interested in actually in the encyclopedia of technical analysis, taking a look. Hopefully I can, maybe during during the Christmas vacation, and just studying a little bit topping patterns and formations, because this looks like a distribution type event over here. I would like to be a little, look at this beautiful move on the Euro New Zealand dollar. And I would like to know a little bit more what happened over here. Let me just, for my own personal reference, put a little bit of mark over here. I'll come back and I really want to study this. We got about another 17 minutes to the PMI numbers. Equities are opening up in just 2 minutes. Going into it, they're up over 0.5%. Look pretty strong. Definitely appears that we have a risk on type environment. You're seeing the bid in crude. What is gold doing, by the way? Mark, I just missed what you said. Yeah, I've listened to Peter Schiff for many years, and Peter has a lot of really good insight. He's definitely very correct, but only in the long term. And the fact is, Peter's been dead wrong for the past 6 years. There's a lot of money to be made. The thing with Peter is that he's definitely selling his book. And again, although he's right in the long term, you can't be that off for well, when was the top in gold? Was it 2012 or was it 2013? I think it was 2013. And well, 2012, 2013, 2011. He's been uber bullish gold since up here, and he should have been super bullish equities. And so anyway, Peter's fantastic and awesome for reading. You get a lot of really good insight from him. Just be aware that, in my opinion, it's some long-term stuff. And he's been right about a lot of things, and he'll continue to be right, but he's going to have to wait a while before he's vindicated. So timing is everything in investing and in trading. And even though you could be right about what is going to happen, if your timing is off, you're wrong. I don't think he hates Bitcoin. He feels that he missed out on Bitcoin. He feels that wrongly so. He feels that he missed out on Bitcoin and it's too late for him. And you know, by him actually picking a fight against Bitcoin, it's the best promotion he could do for himself these days. And Peter is actually confided. I believe it's on record. It's on record, and he's because they said, "What's your problem with Bitcoin?" He said, "I just missed it. I missed out on it." And you know, I haven't seen that. I would love to watch that. That's good. I would love to watch that. Thank you. All right, focus it in here. About 15 minutes. Wow. So far the indices are continuing their gains on the open. Dow lagging. Leonard, I wish I also entered that. And the reason why I want to take a look at this when I can is to learn from it. Because look at the move that followed. And the best part is you're collecting a nice swap on that the whole way. So definitely like to focus in on swing trading, you know, short-term trades, anywhere from a day, you know, generally 3, could be to 5, to go ahead and look to make that regular gains and income. But position trades, whenever they develop, are really, you always want to have your eye on them, because they can make they can really make, you know, this is where serious gains can be had. Let's take a look. So for me, the pound is really undecided. It's not clear at all. You're actually first you're looking at the pound US dollar. And you look back a little bit, look back over here, and you have this, it's like a blue box resistance. Let me draw it in. So I'd be looking at that as more of a buy zone right now. I would not be thinking of selling this short. Let's, let's see how price reacts around there. Fundamentally speaking, it looks like the UK is going to be able to get a deal from the EU and get out. That's going to be pretty positive for the pound. So this article over here, Leonard, it also talks about how how England and the United States both running twin deficits, and how UK is actually in much better shape as far as that's concerned. Is it we could see some really, as now all of this cloudy murkiness seems to be, dissipating on as far as the UK is concerned. It's possible we see some much greater pound appreciation in the year ahead. And I would not be looking to sell up here. Again, I would be leaning off of this trend line over here, and as long as you're above it, you're very bullish. And I don't see anything stopping this right now. You have these couple of wicks over here, but don't forget, you saw it just in like 10 minutes, a 2.5% appreciation. So what's happening here is not abnormal. If you look on the bigger picture, going back a couple of months, few months, she's trading at the highs, right? So there's no reason to be looking, I don't believe, to be getting short the pound there. Yeah, I don't think short and highs is a good idea. This looks pretty good. And again, let's see what happens on Friday when they submit their application for withdrawal. And I'd be picking a top, I think. You're seeing a little bit of pound weakness today. They had weak PMIs. So that's just being priced in. Looks pretty good. Australian dollar, US dollar looks pretty great. We have in about 7 minutes the manufacturing numbers, which probably, depending on how they come in, could give the next move here on the DXY and the dollar. If they are weak, I would look over to the Canadian dollar, but you probably Australian dollar, Canadian dollar are both mixed today. They're both pretty much even. So you see that here as well. This looks good, right? From a long-term perspective, you have this breakout on the Australian dollar of this 1 year long trend line. And not only that, it has since come back, tested this resistance and failed up here. You see the spike above and failed, and then came down and tested the support, and so far as bouncing off it. So that looks pretty good. That looks pretty bullish. And we're in a risk on environment right now. And then you also have pretty much the same exact thing happening on the Australian dollar, Japanese yen. Personally, I prefer against playing it versus the yen, especially in this risk on type environment, plus collecting the swap here. They both look good though. Australian dollar looks like it possibly could be breaking out of a really long downtrend, and there could be some further appreciation. You have monetary policy meeting minutes being released tonight on the Australian dollar. Just be aware, heads up for that. In my opinion, that's going to be supportive of the Australian dollar, but you have to wait and see. Rustin, and I'm not familiar how that all plays in. If you have any insight, please let us know. Good morning, Hanero. Your volatility is definitely continuing. We continue to be in a pretty good environment. I'm a little undecided how a strong PMI number would affect things. To me, that would be just further supportive of a risk on environment. Adversely, if you got a really weak one and that was bearish the dollar, that would continue to help all these pairs making their gains. Aggressive play, Mark. Aggressive play. Was that entry off of the weak PMIs when you got short? You can see this little buy zone that we draw in over here, right? As long as you're above that, this looks pretty bullish. So we've talked about it a couple of times in here. The reason right now why it's really tough shorting the indices is global central bank liquidity is at an all-time high. An all-time high, which is why the indices here are at all-time high. You can't be trading against that. If and when the index, look at this move down here. It's hard and fast. What about last December? When the indices start breaking down, you know they're breaking down. They do move hard and fast. They climb up slow and fall fast. And so unless you see that we're falling hard and fast, they're not falling, and you don't want to be shorting them. A lot of traders like to short the indices, and I believe they should call out the widowmaker or something. There's a lot of traders lose a lot of money doing it. There's just so many better plays to be focused on. Chris, you're saying that the monthly for the Australian dollar closed bearish. Let me take a look. Give about another minute or so to those manufacturing numbers of the U.S. Rustin, I want to get to the peso in a minute. I see it's trading just about at 19 or below. So as far as the Australian dollar, though, this looks really bullish. Don't worry about the monthly close. Look at this. Look over here. You have this trend line, this yearly long trend line over here that has been broken to the upside. Okay. And then since it's been broken, it's simply come down and tested it. It's holding still as support. We have double support right down here. As long as you're holding above this level over here, this is extraordinarily bullish. So again, unless you're below this support over here, this is pretty darn bullish, and this looks like this move could extend for some time to come. All right. The numbers came in basically exactly as forecasted. There's nothing to see or hear over there. And I believe the risk on will continue that we're seeing today. US dollar, Mexican peso is seeing the pesos. I don't know if it's the peso seeing so much strength or it's the dollar seeing weakness, because the Mexican economy is falling into recession. There is nothing hopeful. The only thing that's hopeful was the new NAFTA. What do they call it? The U.S. DMA. I'm not exactly sure there. That you're seeing the peso strengthening on that. That was signed last week, and you're seeing that weak dollar. We're coming into heavy buy zone down here. A lot of resistance, and whether or not the peso could make it through this, I don't know. If you look back, speaking of long term, I mean, does that look bearish or bullish? This to me looks like this looks really bullish, and we'll see. I would not be buying the Mexican peso down here, up here. Again, the Mexican economy is not doing well. It's not forecasted to do well under their current administration. Everyone in the country is very, very bearish, the economy. USMCA. I mean, this is tough. It looks like we're in the middle of this developing pattern here. We're seeing both strength on the Australian dollar and Canadian dollar today. They're kind of just battling it out, but they're pretty unchanged. And you're just getting closer to this pattern playing out over here. Until you break to the upside or downside, at this point, you're just narrowing in as this pattern plays out, and the risk to reward becomes less and less. I'll come back here. Last we took this was right over here, the beginning of last week. And right now I'd be standing aside here. So I tend to stay away from the exotics. I think it was the US dollar, Turkish lira, and I shouldn't have done it. So the direction was clear, and if I would have had could have been a good trade regardless, but the spread is so ridiculous. I don't like it. And plus the swamp on that is so ridiculous. Right? So we want to stick with what's easy, what works. So Maria, anyway, over here though, do you see that basically what's happening is you have, I don't know where the best place to place that. That looks pretty good over there. You have this, what looks like a triangle pattern developing. You see this trend line here, you're getting the lower highs off of it, the higher lows, excuse me, a series of higher lows, and it's continuing up along that trend line. So until you break down, this pattern is in play, and the resistance is also up here. So if you enter long here, you don't have much before you come up upon this resistance here. Or if you go short from here, you're coming right into this support down here. So at this point, staying on the side of this pair seems to be where the play is at, the smartest move. You want to look to enter where you have little room as you enter the trade before the next resistance when buying, or if you're selling before the next support comes into you. Jamshad, I was looking at what you're saying, but you're talking about the print over here. Thanks for including that in there. And in the first 5 minutes since, everything's basically right where it was. Nothing's changed. Looking forward on the calendar. Again, I'm focused here on the Australian dollar monetary policy meeting minutes this evening. Nothing tomorrow on the calendar at all. So it looks to me like this risk on move should have some momentum to it. Also, during the week that we're in, this tends to be a pretty positive week, risk on week historically. So I think focusing here near the Australian dollar, Japanese yen is a good place to be. US dollar, Canadian dollar. What's going to happen with the US dollar? Right? Are we going to see some further weakness in the dollar? On the euro, US dollar, we'll come back to the DXY in 1 second. In my opinion, as long as you're above this trend line over here, you're pretty bullish. As long as you're above this trend line here, you're pretty bullish. You have this resistance up here. I assume there's a strong chance we're going to get another look at this, see if price is able to take it out to the upside, or if we come back down and are able to reject it. But as long as you're above this line, you look healthy and you're seeing the DXY. So that would mean, are we going to come down and test this again and to see if we put it in the bottom here, or is she able to break through the support down here? But it appears, or just it looks to me, that we're going to come down and test this support again before we break above or this resistance. That's what I wanted. The US dollar, Canadian dollar looks like the play against the US dollar along with the Australian dollar right now. So you see we're chasing a little bit. That's good. That gives you an opportunity to get back short here when we start reversing. I wouldn't sell while price is rising. I always wait for the confirmation, but look to the leaders. Australian dollar, Canadian dollar have been the strongest versus the dollar, and numbers came in here just as forecasted, not really bringing anything new into the market. What do we have at 11? I don't really think that's good. It's marked as a high impact news event. I'd be surprised. We'll see. Seen a little retrace in moves. Dollar since for the last 10 minutes is strengthening. And I'm also seeing the yen come off a tiny bit. I wouldn't read anything into any of it. Just aware of what's happening. What's going on? Where are people looking? I'm looking here at the Australian dollar, Japanese yen. Unit trade on that. Focus there for continued movement. Australian dollar, US dollar to the upside, and US dollar, Canadian dollar to the downside. If anyone else is focused anywhere else, let me know. I would like to evaluate personally, as well as for everyone else. Let's see how gold has reacted so far. So it looks like the heaviest gains so far since the numbers have come in against. This is good. This actually looks for a possible place for reentry coming up. And versus the Canadian dollar. Pound US dollar and pound Japanese yen are just now unchanged on the day. So this looks better to me than trading against the US dollar here, the euro pound. This was during the election night here, this enormous breakdown. It came up right away and tested the place where it broke down that held as resistance. So this is now resistance over here. And now it came back up here. And if we make a lower a lower high, um, I might want to get down here on any type of resumption downwards. I think so, Mark. I have my eye there now. I think so. Just taking a big step back too. If she goes on to make lower lows, there's nothing in between here. There's absolutely nothing in between over here. So this looks like the place to begin looking to see if we get further extension. As long as that resistance holds over here, this is a good place to lean off of. All right, because as long as we stay below this resistance over there, 0.839 looks good. So I'm curious, a little impromptu poll. How many people have thought about it? How many people have decided whether or not they're trading next week? Next week is Christmas. It is, or I should say, not Christmas itself, but I mean, next week, as well as let me just even give you dates to make it easier. Who's trading the 23rd of December through January 6th? Have you thought about it? Do you have a game plan going in? I highly recommend not trading during that time. When the markets are open, they're very, very low volume. Is not a good time to trade, especially if you are taking swing trades. It's not the time to be trading. Even day trading, since things aren't moving, it's not a good idea. I know often people they feel like they should be trading and in the markets. I'm going to really let you know that I highly recommend, outside of something falling apart in the markets and there being a reason to be trading, you're much better off not trading. You're much better off as far as going to be reflected in your profit and loss, and as far as mentally, to just get even a week away or 10 days away from the market is going to have you coming back with just a fresher perspective. So I guess what I'm saying, what I'm gently guiding you towards, is really taking a look at whether or not you should be trading that week, weighing the pros and cons, and then really this week, but before you get to Friday, start thinking about that. And outside of the possibility exists that, because things are not moving right now in, the plumbing of the markets. The Fed is spending $500 billion these next few weeks, and hopefully, that's enough. And because they're being overly cautious, there'll be no problems. But yeah, outside of there being a real situation, and there's a real situation because that's when everyone is talking about it. People who are not involved in finance and in the markets, it's best to stay away. It's best psychologically, it's best mentally, and it's best for your account. All right, so little retracements, I think, are now, that might have been, let's see, not much movement here on the US dollar, Canadian dollar. are seeing the dollar strengthen versus the yen. There you go. Now you're seeing the dollar come off, and that's also being translated. Euro's not really moving. More often than not, the best entries for myself come overnight during London. Or if followed by a pretty big news release at 8:30 Eastern time. That's awesome, Panera. That's awesome. Good work. And what do you plan on doing in your time off? Are there any books that you plan on reading? Anywhere that you want to focus on improving, learning? And for traders and trading, one of the biggest aspects that things that you could work on is yourself. So if you want to be successful at trading, you have to be successful at taking care of yourself. You have to be very disciplined in all aspects of your life, which includes definitely taking care of your body, eating well, exercising, getting good sleep. The more that you have all these things aligned, the more you're going to see that reflected in your trading. So if you're looking to do something during these 2 weeks, during these 10 days of off time, and it's not really centered as far as maybe learning or reading any type of trading book, you should focus on yourself and what you could do to improve the quality of your life and the conditioning of your life. Rustin, that sounds like a lot of uncertainty overhanging. And why does it always seem there's so much uncertainty overhanging the markets? But no, sincerely, that sounds like a big deal. And something that I need to read up on more, be focused. Right now, you see I'm just like, well, I don't know what's going on with the pound pair, so I'm stepping aside. But that's a big deal. There's a little bit of friction going on over there. Okay. I think she's got, let me fix this blue box here. Let me step out here to the daily. She's got some much further upside potential here. So the blue box right now, you can see I had this resistance down here, these candles. You see it over here. And that's where I have this extended to. I'm looking here on let's throw that up to the resistance up over here now. I think there's a good chance, it's really solid chance we're going to get into this pocket over here. I would not be looking to sell this pair. Again, we're looking at right now risk on, and that's reflected in the Japanese yen weakness we're seeing across the board. This has the possibility of, and again, the phase one deal was not really much of a deal, but regardless of the fact, it has kind of set the course for near term or intermediate term risk on. That's what's being reflected in the markets. I could not imagine buying the yen at this point. So until shown otherwise, stay with the trend, stay with the theme in place. We could take a look if we are able to come up and test the upper resistance here of this channel, but I would not consider selling the yen right now. I'm not looking to buy it after it ran away from me. I can't get into this trade yet. The closer we come down over here again, if and when we do come along this trend line over here, then I'll be looking for buys. But right now we're in the middle of the channel and I'm not in it, so I'm not going to be looking to buy right now. I was just thinking about what I'm going to be doing, and well, I don't really get too much downtime, that's for sure. Got a lot of little ones, but although I'm not going to be trading the markets those days, I'll still be following them, that's for sure. And I'm going to be focused in on. Well, I'm gonna have my hand full. That's for sure. But I'm gonna actually be more focused a little more on my system designs. It'll give me the opportunity with that time to really focus on more of my automated stuff. Silver is interesting right here. You can see silver is back towards this resistance here, which is the lower end of this channel. It's similar to gold, and they both were trading in this channel. Silver broke down first. Silver broke down, tested the resistance, and then came off and is now testing it again. If it gets back into this channel, it's pretty bullish, and it has a little bit of room to the upside. But right now, you do expect that this resistance is going to hold, and you're going to watch to see if price is rejected off of it. You could also see gold is at the same time coming towards this resistance here, this upper trend channel resistance, and this resistance, this red line joining right over here. It's got a lot to work through, and if it does get through it, it's got another resistance right above it. So until we clear through here, I'm not looking long gold. Some people took long gold down here off of that support. That was a good trade and a good place to be buying. Always buying off support is the place to be. Selling off resistance. The Euro US dollar looks stalled for. All right, not really stalled. And for me, I'm definitely neutral now on the Euro US dollar. You can see the resistance right here, the support down here, and price is actually directly in the middle. Blair's looking at the 200-day moving average, 200 period moving average, probably on the 1 hour, I assume. And I'm looking over there at that resistance where she's kind of hung. Either way, I'm very neutral here right now. I do expect that we're going to come up and test into this resistance here again. I think that will have the DXY looking down here at that support. And I think that's going to be the next area. And then to the downside, as long as we're above this trend line here, I have the bullish bias to the Euro US dollar. But if we get up into here, I will be taking some profits before it breaks through, assuming that it won't break through until it breaks. That's intuitive what I see too. You got wrecked. That's what I see. Which is why I'm looking, if we get up in there, to look to take profits. The move does look corrective to me. And I don't know that we will, but I think we will. I think we'll get into this little pocket over here. We're pretty close to resistance. Oh, that's interesting. That's a big deal then. If you're looking at the 200-day on the daily, that's a big number that a lot of traders watch. Everyone, I'm just going to take a quick 5 minutes here. That's why I'm muted. Yeah, and yeah, so two things. Raj, definitely yes, and definitely yes, Mark. You need to be scalping this to the downside if you're trading it. Um, if you're a swing trader, you've already missed the entry. This is not something you're looking for an entry on right now. But the downside today, the momentum's with the Canadian dollar, and this is more of a scalp play. Swing trader is looking either the last moves was into the resistance over here, which was highly aggressive, and then for me it would have been something like over here when I get that confirmation to the downside, and then go with the momentum. Got a lot to change here. We've taken out a lot of supports. Mark, that's awesome. I agree. If you're trading, if you're short term minded on Forex, generally speaking, the 15-minute, 30-minute, 50 is the place to be. If you're trading the e-minis, the futures, then you could be trading off of the 3-minute or the 5-minute, but not in Forex, not unless you're having a really, really, really high impact news event like a rate cut or a rate hike. Mm. So for the Australian dollar, Japanese yen, you want to be looking, I guess, at take profits, where the levels would be. First focused it in over here where my mouse is horizontally, and you can see that's where price was just rejected up there. So I'd be more focused not on take profits right now on the Australian Japanese yen, but more on stop losses. And so for me personally, I'm giving this a little room to run. Okay, I right now my stop loss is all the way down here at 73. Little blow. Let me see exactly what it is. 74.45. Actually, I have it all the way up here. All right, this is where my stop loss is. And it's below this trend line and it's below this stop. There's a lot of room. I think down here, mine's actually 75 pips higher. Down here is actually a really safe place to be. Until this is, this is not only technical now. Technically, this looks really good. You've broken out of this trend line. You're above this. This is now support, right? So this looks really bullish right now. And for me, it's not a question of looking to take profits so much as it is looking to see what happens as we get up here. If we're able to break through this next resistance over here, I have it all the way at 76.23. I think it's a little lower. I think, there's about a 15 pip range, from 76.23 and down that is providing resistance. You get above there, which is why I want to take a look at what happens up there and not be so quick to just take profits so quickly, is you get above there and in the environment we're in, you could see, further extension, some serious further extension, a few hundred pips. So, you can't get there unless you give it that room. And here it's really clear when you're wrong, right? You're wrong if this breakout doesn't hold. And for sure that it might not be a clean break to the upside, and we could see some further consolidation around here, which is why you wait and see how price looks and reacts when it gets up there, because we know that usually if things break out, they do that with some momentum. Usually when price starts stalling or retracing, okay, that's when, we might be basing out, and then you could look to be, taking a little piece off there. But I'm not so quick to take profits here. I want to see what develops. If you were trading the Australian dollar, US dollar, I would be more quick to take profits. Raj, I'm on the sidelines on the US dollar, Canadian dollar. Just looking at your stop, 3164. I mean, it's tough for me, Raj, to be honest. That might be a better place to be selling into. It looks like pretty good resistance up there. So if that's what you're looking at, you want to be a little bit higher. I like my green line here at 3182, just above that, right? Or, I think as a swing trader. So I'm wrong up here. So I like selling the closer I get up to there. As far as an entry, 3147, I don't like selling as price is rising. right? So if I was looking to trade this off the 4-hour, and now as you come close to this resistance, what I would do is then go down to, a smaller time frame and wait for price to be rejected and come back off. I would, at this time of day, I would not be looking to take an entry. You could wait. Well, you still have about another hour and 20 minutes of some good trading. So if you're scalping, okay. But see right here, as price is making a higher high, yeah, I don't want to be selling that at all. I would wait for actually price to show me that it's making a lower low if I'm looking to sell here. It looks a little preemptive. Raj, you're gonna have much more success taking a step back, trading off the higher time frames, picking the time of days to trade. Do it. Do it, do it, do it. Take a step back. Now, Blair, I think you're looking at taking profits. I think you had a 75.68 is where you're looking. Right? And I mean, so it's just something to consider when you get towards that area, maybe moving your stop loss to break even and giving the trade a little bit of room to run might be the better idea here. I'm definitely not looking to give you advice here. I'm just giving you my perspective. And because the reason I say that is because you do have the Australian central bank policy meeting minutes being released this evening. That's a big deal. I don't know how price is going to react on there. I see risk on right now. I see weak yen. And I know that, as traders, we're, sometimes it's like in our, a lot of traders are more apt to let losing trades run and take profits too soon, right? So I've worked really hard at not taking profits too soon. And to do that, you have to become disciplined, right? Because it's easy to take profits too soon. I'm giving it room here personally. This looks really healthy. And I'm giving it the room it needs. I would only be looking to take profit. I wouldn't look to be taking profit. I would only be looking to take to get out at break even. Oh, A4. Yeah. So in this environment though, that's a really good place, right? I'm looking for the break of this resistance up here. And I entered this trade in 3 different pieces. Okay. They all have different sizes. And I'll be taking, let me see where my first take profit is. Yeah. I actually have my first take profit above this resistance line. So I'm giving it some room. And where you're at, where you took the look at 75.84, that's a really good price level. And if you were able to take a little piece off there, I think that's fantastic. As you're coming into this, if you get another retest of the high over here, you have this strong resistance coming up over here off of this really strong breakout. You have the whole bigger picture on your side right now. just be aware it could get a nice breakout over here. And if you get a breakout over here, looks good. Yeah, so I mean, from both, just right now, Raj and Blair, like, I'm just trying to offer my guidance, my insight. That's all. That's what we're all here for in this channel, to kind of help each other and build each other up. And we focused on this a lot with Hernero, because Hernero is pretty good at having an idea of what type of environment he's trading in, which is something we all need to be really reflective of. What I'm doing is I'm looking at that bigger perspective. The risk I see is if something bad happens going into the end of the year with liquidity. But the Fed seems to be putting up an enormous amount of liquidity, and hopefully we get through it the year end with unscathed, right? But that's my risk. That's what I'm worried about in this moment. For the first time in a long time, I'm not really so much focused on China and the USA, right? That's good. So I feel like risk on is developing. I'm looking at the charts. I'm seeing that big breakout over here. And usually when you get a breakout of a trend line going back that far and that big, and then you get the retest as we did, usually there's a good chance it holds and sticks. And there's the possibility for that, right? Nothing's ever easy, but I got to give it the room. And what I'm trying to do here is get a swing trade into a position trade. So, you could take a little bit of profit if you want, or just move your stop loss to break even, but you got to give it that room, and then focus on other pairs for taking that profit out of the market. On this one, this is a pretty rare setup. It looks pretty good. It's not going to happen unless you allow it to happen. Blair, that's all solid stuff, and that is really pretty close to where I'm focused as far as all of those risk rewards are and levels are. Although I don't close things out at UK, and just a different time horizon, but all of that is very solid. That is all very, very, very solid, close to where I'm at, and I'm highly supportive of all of that. All I'm saying, and so most of the time that's where you want to stick with, but you have to see, the bigger picture on this one. And same thing for your British pound over here. I was taking a look at this a little while earlier in the session, and I noticed, right, the big breakdown, and then tested the resistance. And now if we're making a lower high and resume downwards, if I could get in there on a swing trade with my normal risk to reward levels, but then we do break down to new lows, all of a sudden, if we break down to new lows here, we have some empty space, right? That could become a really nice position trade, collecting the spread on the right side. So since we've been together for these past 6-7 weeks, I've not taken one position trade, but I'm looking for them to develop, entering via swing trades, and if they are able to turn into a position trade because of what's developing technically on the chart, I want them. So again, on the Australian dollar, US dollar, I'm more apt to take profit sooner and quicker and not look to hold that. But here on the Australian dollar, Japanese yen, that's I'm hoping we could break above this resistance here and this turn into something, right? And I can never get that opportunity unless I allow it to happen. And again, the reason for it is look at that break. Yeah, I don't even think in this. I don't even think in this case that it's like out of every 10 trades you take, one should be looking for the position trade. I think the percentage is much less than that. But from time to time, they develop and they exist. Maybe closer to 1 to 20. I mean, look at this. The indices are up almost, 0.75%. Nasdaq up 1%. At all new time highs. Global liquidity, central bank liquidity is all-time highs. We are definitely in not only a risk on environment right now, but it's something that might hold for a little while. And yeah, if that's the case, we want to be involved. This was the turning point. This is where the clarity stepped in. Of course, it's down here, but this is tough, right? That's picking a bottom. I was looking for the extension down here for things to fall apart in the trade deal. Looks like the euro's lagging behind. So if you focus over to the euro Australian dollar, is the Australian dollar putting in some gains? No. That's interesting. Will it soon be? Maybe. Below this support level gets pretty interesting. But it is sideways. So it's really more the yen weakness we're seeing right now more than anything. Where was it over here? I was considering taking some profits up here. I wanted to wait till we got further towards this resistance up here. And that's the important piece for me, even though I saw it, kind of felt it over here, but by sticking to to what's more hard and fast, it doesn't matter that so far appears that I was wrong. I'm better off in the long run, and more importantly, I'm focused if we take out this trend line, I'm on high alert, and then below this support line, right? Then this looks like it's really bearish. But above these two areas, I expect that will hold over here. So if you are short time minded and you are short the Euro US dollar right now, you have to be looking for profits in this area over here. I'm going to wait this out. But I see the euro weak here, and the Australian dollar is actually looks like it's putting on some gains. Yeah, so that's why I looked over at the euro Australian dollar. But then when I went over there, I just don't see it. It's still pretty sideways. Yeah, my FX book is good for looking at the community outlook, how everyone is positioned. So there you have, from my experience here on the euro Japanese yen, you see I have 94% short. Once you get over 90% one way or the other, that's where retail is usually wrong. Until you get that like sharp last move, that last momentum push, and then usually price comes along. You wanted to take a look at silver. Gold. Oh yeah, you do see silver being rejected by that trend line over there. And also then gold must be getting rejected by that resistance over there. That's both interesting. And this is a good place to get short silver. Let me see. You got wrecked. I'm going to come right back to that in a moment with you. $17.15 is the stop loss first. All right. Just make sure that you got enough room in here for the spread on silver. I don't trade silver. I trade gold. I'm not sure what it is, but make sure that if your stop is there at 7.15, that you got enough room for the spread over there. And $16.26. So Jermaine, I've noticed often in my trading that I'm a little too exact with my stop losses and take profits. And so sometimes like where you have your stop, there'll be a place that I would have placed my stop a lot, and I'll notice that price will come into my stop, and that would be the high. Just make sure you give yourself more than a couple of pips and you're not as exact. So your take profit is great. The only thing I would add to this whole trade that you took is once you get down into this area over here at around 1662 or whatever, in this area over here where I have that green line of support, once you get to there, I would look two things to see how price reacts. I would move my stop to break even at that point, and then I would see if price breaks through that level. And if it breaks through, then I'm holding it. But if price kind of like starts leveling out and stalling and then retracing, you might want to look to take profits. So instead of having a hard and fast take profit, what I do is I look to the nearest when selling support area and I watch how price reacts when we get there. So we'll do that together in this trade. If price comes in, comes back down and tests the support, we'll watch together how it's reacting. And then depending on what it does, you either want to, first you want to move your stop to break even. Then if price breaks through, you want to hold that out, see what happens. And if price stalls and starts retracing, it's a good idea to take profits and then get back into the trade later on. Good trade, good setup. You got wrecked. Are you looking over here? Where does it show the lots for on Forex Factory? And over here it does. That's interesting. Yeah, we can have a look at oil. You're not late. There's a beauty about this. You could you could follow along live. You could follow along during the replay and be here with us just the same as things that are developing. And so the story of oil for me, looking here at the daily chart, is we have this trend line over here. I'd focus in on there. As long as you're above it, you're pretty bullish. You could see, it looks to me like we're getting ready. We're in this resistance here and we could get a breakout here. And, we're looking at bigger picture. We're really seeing risk on. We'll put a bid under oil and in the near term. And it looks like things are positioned where this could continue, right? We might want to be looking up around till around 63. This move could run to somewhere in that area between 62 and 64. And as long as you're above this trend line over here, it looks pretty good. As far as entering now, though, like if you were looking to take an entry, I don't know, right? I think you had, well, it's pretty close. I don't trade oil. Where's the closest area for a breakout to be looking? Where's that resistance really come in? I mean, we're kind of at it right here, right now. So I'm not sure how to play it, whether or not you wait for a breakout to occur and then see if you're able to get a retest and get in. It's more difficult for me in that I don't trade oil, but I do see As long as you're above this trend line, looks pretty bullish. I see that we could, in the environment we're in, get a nice breakout over here and possibly see some further upside. But I'm a little stumped there how to get into that trade if you're not already in it. Let's take a look. Oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So what is the amount? So here you have 485 lots short. That's a big difference, right? And then when you go to my FX book, there seems to be a lot more volume. My FX Forex Factory is just including live accounts here for these positions. And I'm not sure if this is both demo and live or just live accounts. If anyone knows, is the data here just on live accounts? Yeah, it says real accounts. So we seem to have much greater volume here than on Forex Factory alone. Probably pretty smart to just be aware of both of them. Oh, there you go. So it's interesting. We're looking at retail traders on both, and you could see that whether they're long or short, they're both not in profit. And same thing over here, right? They're both not in profit. And that brings us back to people, holding on to their losers and taking profits too early. And that's something every single one is aware of. No matter how long you've been trading, you've heard before, you got to cut your losing trade short and hold on to your winners. And everyone is aware of that. So there has to be a point in time when you really focus in on that and really get into, are you doing that, and how you can do that if you're not doing that. So what's developed over on the US dollar, Canadian dollar? You guys are watching the short term. All right, again, no matter what time frame you're on, always wait for price to make that lower low when looking to sell, just to get that momentum with you rather than selling into something that's rising. You never know where it's going to stop, where it's going to end. We're going to keep it here on the 8-hour. I don't want to get you guys thinking short term. My FX book is like, it's a place where you could track your portfolio. There's a lot more, obviously, compared to Forex Factory. You could see here, you have, for example, short, you have 66,000 lots. And then here you have 351 lots. So you have a lot more data to play with. A lot more data to play with. On Twitter, there's this account I follow that it shows on my FX book when over 90% of the retail is short or long, positioned against a pair. Let me see if I could. Let me see. Let me just see if it's in my feed. Next time I see it posted in the feed, I will. It's usually towards the close of New York, and it'll. So I'll take a notice and show you next time, and it'll show you if anyone is positioned. For example, on the euro, Japanese yen, it'll show you that that over 90% of retail is short. Same thing here on the New Zealand dollar, US dollar. You could see when retail is really highly skewed, that's usually when that pair is really making some moves. But I haven't found any way to use that as a trading strategy. I've thought about it, but I haven't found the way. So pound is really unchanged, even with the release of the bank stress tests. Canadian dollar, we haven't even considered it. Being that it's so strong versus the yen, it must be doing well. There was never really an opportunity for me to get in here on this breakout. Down here was the possibility though, off of this support, and once you cleared this resistance over here, because there was a good risk to reward ratio going into the next resistance. I think it's really, really, really important to review trades, especially the ones you missed. Over here too, if you look at this, this is now support clearly, so I'll change it. If you looked at what happened, the price action going into this resistance, when it was resistance though, and you see price here, when you see that price came up here and traded down, this down price bar, right? This also could have been a possibility for a long entry, just having a buy stop in above the high of that price. But even looking back on it, I mean, here's where we should have been focused in on it. And that was the possibility. But aside from that, got to wait now as we come back down. And if price comes back down and was to test this support along with this support down here, at that point, I have to take another look. Right now, this looks super healthy, and I have a feeling that we're going to continue to extend upwards as we come along this next resistance here now. But I'm not getting involved. Gold also so far being rejected right up there at that resistance. And I want to see what the US dollar is still stuck, still just holding down here. Alberto went long on the US dollar, Japanese yen. Let's take a look. So Alberto, what was your entry? Let's wait and take a look at that. You're coming into resistance right now. That's why I'm asking where your entry is. And on what time frame are you trading? So what was your entry price and what time frame are you trading? All right, Albert, I'll take a look at this with you later today. And so anyway, I'll review it now anyway. All right. So if you're trading this off the daily time, the daily is pretty difficult to trade off of. All right. And so I really think the 8 hour is a much better time frame to focus in on, or the 12 hour. I don't trade off the 12 hour. It's a good time frame to trade off of. You only have 2 signal periods a day. The 8 hour does give you a little bit better entries on certain things. And if you're trading the 8 hour and you're only trading London and New York, it makes it really easy to trade. Here's the thing about what's going on here, looking at the daily time frame on the US dollar, Japanese yen. It looks like you have a strong possibility of this trade continuing to work out in your favor. And there is a strong possibility that on this next look of this resistance up here, that she's going to break through to the upside. And if it does, you have some nice room to look at before you get towards this next resistance up here of this trend line, as you would look for a possible take profit area. That being said, that's almost dangerous because the entry on the daily here is tough to find one and see. You can see that price broke through this double resistance here, came back up and tested this trend line resistance. It came back down and tested that broken resistance as support and came back up. Technically, it looks perfect, but where's the entry? It's hard for me to distinguish. If I look down at the 8 hour, it's also tough. It's a tough trade. It looks to me that we're gonna have a good look here with this yen weakness here. We're not really seeing dollar strength, but we are seeing yen weakness, and that we're gonna get a chance to come up here, and that's gonna look good if we get a breakout. I think the proper play on that is almost getting the breakout here, and then looking for this to be tested as support and holding, and then getting towards the resumption of the trend. But I'll take a look at with you, and we'll see what was the exact reasonings for getting into the trade. It's really important, is having a pretty clear reasoning for entering any trade that you do based on a set of criteria that you could follow. And mine is on the 8 hour time frame during London and New York, when buying off support for price making a higher high than the previous price bar, right? Over here, all right, this was during Asia. No, this was during London. This is Asia here, and then we're at support. So although I wasn't looking at it, I wouldn't take it, I don't see it. I could see an entry being right over there as you regaining, but it's iffy, that support level right here. But then you're coming right into that resistance right here. It's enough room. It's tight. It's tight though. So All right, so it's time of day. So any entry up until the next 45 minutes is pretty good. And then the next 2 hours after that, so what time are we on Eastern time? From 12 to between 12 and 2 o'clock Eastern time, usually any entries are pretty iffy. All right, you don't have a strong probability with them. That's a really good time not to take any new entries on any new signals that develop is between 12 and 2 Eastern time. And then as you get for the last 2 hours of the day, those are pretty strong signals. All right, so it's a time of day where you usually see some retracement. It's just not strong signals. I think the Australian dollar, Japanese yen is the stronger play here because you're seeing definitely strong yen weakness. But let's look at the Australian dollar, US dollar. And so this was a good place to enter right over here. This is during the London session. And you see that price held the supports, right? These broken resistance, and it held the support and then was even gaining this support level over here. So an entry over here during London was a good trade and a good opportunity to get in. We're very close to there right now, right? We're a couple of pips off that. What is that? Yeah, I mean, we're within 4 pips of that. So if you're getting long here, that's a good and valid trade and entry, and you have your stop loss down below these two support levels. That's a good trade to enter. It's clear, I see it. But as far as entering on a break here to a new high, no. Okay, and the reason being is the time of day. Okay, between 12 and 2 is not a good time. You still have 45 minutes or 40 minutes if you were to get an entry, but the higher high was made right here on this price bar. That was the entry to be looking for, not making a higher high up here. All right. Yeah, you could take a photo here, take a snapshot, and that link works. You could definitely direct message me on Twitter to get that to me. You could message that through TradingView. It'll show up here as an alert. And if you take your time with that, Alberto, and send it to me through Twitter, I'll take a look at that today for sure. I wanna definitely get on the same page as you with that. Seven five eight five. Yeah, I think so too. And I think this is one of the cases where and this is not so good. I think it's one of the cases where because of what's happening, you're going to get away with it, and that's bad because that teaches you in the future that you can kind of get away with it. So we want to look at what happened and just really evaluate that and understand it together. 75.85. Oh. I'll wait for you to send me a link with the chart you're looking at, Alberto. Miyama, do you understand what we were just talking about here and why? Why this is the place for entry as price makes a higher high over here, and you're not looking for a higher high over here to enter? You also here, if you pull up, you see the entry CCI was pulled back here as you would have been entering. And now you're taking a trade towards the entry CCI being, in the overbought area. I mean, this is just a little more supportive of the risk on we're seeing. Again, for me, the thing that I'm looking at is the greatest risk would be if there were some type of liquidity problem going into the year end. And again, the Fed, which is seeing that, is putting up $500 billion to kind of get in front of that. So odds are that's going to be enough, but that, no longer is it seemed to be US and China. Of course, that could always change with the tweet. We've seen it before, but that doesn't look like that's really a worry right now. And that we have actually a little bit of time here now for risk on to really build. So the break of resistance was right up here. This, right? And then, so this is the break that, so again, what I definitely use is I use when buying off of support. Here you have support down here is when, and then here you also at the same time had this extra positive sign of the true trend being upwards with the entry side pullback as you came in to test this support. And then my entry is during London or New York when price makes a higher high than the previous 8-hour price bar. In this case, Mima, this is also above that resistance you might have been looking at. So that's also an added positive sign. If you're looking now that you're above this resistance area, and now you're looking for price to come back and make the higher high, if you were looking at this resistance area and for price to get above it, and this should have been, this is lighter, like this is the more important support down here, right? So this is the support you should have been looking to lean off of. But if you're looking at this support now, so now as price pulls back, okay, that's good, right? And the entry CCI is coming back down to you. Now, if you're waiting for price to make a higher high, to do that, it needs to be during the right session, okay? And that's not going to be during the upcoming Asia session, okay? So if this continues to hold, this structure holds where you're seeing price above this, and I would look over here as support, but you're looking over here at that resistance, which now should be support. So you need to now wait for now London or tomorrow New York for price to make that higher high. Because if you're looking to play above the broken resistance, you need to have first the test of that resistance, which means a down price bar would need to be put in. This would need to close as a down price bar. Oh, that changes everything, Alberto. All right. So Australian dollar, Japanese yen. You had price breakout here, come back down. You see it here. Here's where the entry CCI is pulled back as you come into support, right? This is the ideal entry as price makes a higher high during London than the previous price bar off of support. So over here at 75.33, 34, right? The high of this price bar, plus the spread is the perfect entry, the ideal entry, the entry that, the go-to entry that you're looking at. You're looking at support to be tested, then hold, and then price to resume upwards. All right. So on the Australian dollar, Japanese yen, that's and review that. Look at it. This is, you're trading off the daily. Well, that's harder. I don't see it at all in the daily unless you used like maybe if you're trading off the day. I don't want to confuse anyone. If you're trading off the daily though, you would have to use the opening here of this price bar when price made a higher high above the previous open. But that's not where we are. So the correct way I believe to view this is definitely this is our textbook trade. This is in an uptrend. Price comes out, tests the support. It holds a support. And as price makes a higher high during London on the 8-hour time frame to enter. That's a trade to review. This is a perfect textbook, clear trade and entry. Yeah, so let's look at that. You got wrecked. So the New Zealand dollar, US dollar, we know that retail is really short against. This is kind of like an exercise. All right. So they are 93% short the New Zealand dollar versus the US dollar. Let's look on the daily, or I don't know what time frame probably retail is trading, probably 4 hour. What would you guys think that retail is really focused on trading? So if they're short, they're all short this, right? They're all short this rising price. Where do we think their stops are? So in just making this like a thought experiment, like for us all to figure out, we want to, I'm assuming that if retail is so far short this, that they're kind of holding on to big losing positions. But is that true? Hold on. Let's see how far short they are. If we go to what you showed us here in, they don't have the New Zealand, because this shows you how many pips they're short. No, it doesn't. It shows their average entry prices. Do we get an average entry price over here? No way to expand that. I guess it's on Forex Factory. Then you could see what their entry price was and how far underwater they are. Oh, here you go. That's what we want. So, which is average short. They're about 100 pips underwater. So they're here short from the breakout then. Yeah, from right about the breakout, they're short. So where would their stop be? Well, where would you guys put your stop if you were shorting this breakout? This is why we trade off of support and resistance, right? We're waiting for that breakout and then looking to go long off the support. You see all the retail here actually were shorting this breakout. So they were shorting up here. We wouldn't even be looking, considering that. Where do they put their stops now? They're about 100 pips against them. Are they looking at resistance above to put stops, above it? I'm not sure. But I do like looking at this and seeing where they went short. They all went short over here on the breakout of this resistance level, right? So we would have been looking to short this resistance level where they shorted it only if price resume downwards. So this is really good just for affirming our style of trading versus theirs. We would only look to go short on that resistance if price had bounced off it and resumed downwards. They all shorted on the breakout. We would only look to get long this if we had the retest and then the resumption upwards, which I don't think happened. Here was the first opportunity to see the first pullback, and then the test of the support was over here. So the reason I wouldn't have got long, because my long entry would have been all the way up there, I wouldn't have looked to got long. But that's the difference between how we're viewing things and how they view it. And I think that's beneficial, but I'm only able to see where they might put their stops. Yeah, I think so. I think I don't think they have stops in. I think it would be better if you were able to see somehow like where they would get a margin call and get stopped out due to leverage, because that is, that's the point you want to look at, because I think they're going to hold until then. I don't think they're viewing the market as we view the market. So seeing the dollar from up a little bit, coming back into this resistance area up here. So something that I'm a little would like to get some clarity at. You guys have the London closed here at 11 a.m. And from what I notice is that it's at noon when you see those last retraces and spikes. Anyway, I guess there's something for me to figure out. I'm a little confused by that. For me, it's an hour after London close where you see those last firming up of positions. That's awesome, Blair. Nice trading. And now you're seeing no man's land. What are you looking at exactly, though? What pair? I'm seeing the DXY is coming up into resistance. I'm seeing the euro is coming down into this support over here as the DXY is in resistance. Um, that's what I'm confused about, Blair. Again, you guys have the London close marked at 11 a.m. Eastern time. I notice this is the time where you see that profit taking, or this period right now, this half hour of trading between 11:30 and 12 noon Eastern time is when you see some pretty sharp moves until the top of the hour. So maybe that's coming more from New York before lunchtime. I'm not sure, but this is the time that I focus on. Oh, okay. Oh, no, no, okay, okay. I thought I was confused. That's what I thought when the UK close was. I thought you earlier, guys had said that the bank stress tests were coming at the UK close. Oh, I'm sorry. I had the wrong. That explains my confusion. Um, so I'm not confused at all. It is the London close. I don't think it's New York. I thought this had said 11 a.m. and you guys were referring to that as the London close. Why I always thought it was at the top of the hour at 12. Sorry for all that confusion. Got it. Yep. Blair, have a great night. Hope to see you tomorrow. Hanero, that's a big bullet point. Super important. And just by filtering out the times of days you should not be trading, you will improve your performance. It's one of the most important things to be considering. My experience, the next 2 hours of day, you should never take any new entries on. It's a very poor time to be trading. My entry signals during those 2 hours of the day have mixed results and mixed to poor results. And by avoiding them, I'm better off. The last 2 hours of New York are fine. And then after that, wait until London. I am curious at the close here of London, whether or not this resistance then holds and we start seeing price roll over here and a resumption upwards against the dollar across all pairs. Good insight, Hanero. Really good insight. But if you did miss this trade and want to participate in it, you could see you're right at entry price right now. This is where you could have entered long during London. You could see it pretty clearly right now. That's where price is. But you would not, I would not be looking to be taking an entry up here off of this. No, it was Australian dollar, US dollar. Exactly. New Zealand dollar, US dollar. We're really looking at, you got wrecked was talking about looking for the stops of people caught off on the wrong side of trades, whether you're looking at Forex Factory and seeing, traders, the amount of traders caught on the wrong side of the trade, or my FX book. I like my FX book. And it was really neat though, doing that exercise to see how differently we trade. They're all, this is really interesting if anyone missed it. You have 93% of retail traders short the New Zealand dollar, US dollar. Their average price they're short from was 100 pips ago on this breakout of this resistance, right? So they all shorted the breakout of resistance, which is clearly something we would never find ourselves involved in, because we're only looking to short resistance if it holds and resumes the other way. And off of this broken resistance, we would only be looking to go long off the support if it was possible to get in. But in this case, it would not have been for me. The trade would have got away, but there's no way that we would be on the other side of this trade. And I think I think they're just holding. I think they shorted this and they're just holding it. I don't think they even have stop losses. I think this is a perfect time too for us all to end this session as we're here coming up on the close and price is pretty much leveling out now, stalling. Anyone who's continuing to watch the markets right now, what I'm watching here is this resistance here on the DXY, which you see across the board. You see that on the euro US dollar, this, which is playing out as this trend line right here. And what my hunch is, what's going to happen within the next 10 minutes, next 15, 20 minutes, is that this is going to hold and we'll get a resumption downwards. We'll see. I don't know. If we do regain this resistance, then we're looking here at the next resistance over here. But things look pretty steady right now. It looks like we're seeing risk on across the board. And we have no big data tomorrow. There's nothing on the calendar tomorrow. You have tonight the monetary policy meeting minutes affecting the Australian dollar. And I don't really think that this is going to affect the market. It could put a bid actually under the New Zealand dollar. There was a big miss previously. Let's see how that data plays out today. Oh, it was improving last time. It was improving. So that's it for today, everyone. Appreciate sharing the session with me. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you tomorrow.